Spring has sprung and so has a bunch of new seasonal anime. Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Animel. If you haven't been here before, I'm Mel, the host of this channel, and today we'll be discussing all of the spring anime that I will be watching this season. And in hopes of keeping myself sane, this list won't be the entirety of everything that's going on this spring, but I hope to talk about what I find most interesting, why I find it interesting, or perhaps I may have already watched it. And stay tuned till the end because there are definitely some honorable mentions that I may or may not be watching, but I thought I should mention anyway. This first one is due to the fact that I've been reading the webcomic from it, thanks to a recommendation from Life with Anime podcast. If you don't follow them, make sure you go subscribe to their channel and check out some of their videos. Some of their content is really fun and very enjoyable. It will definitely make you laugh. And this anime may actually already be underway by the time you watch this video, and this anime is called The Beginning After the End, or more commonly known as TBATE. And the first thing that stood out to me when reading TBATE is the fact that it reminds me very much of Mushoku Tensei Jobless Reincarnation, if you are familiar with that anime. Now, what differentiates it is definitely from the fact that Mushoku Tensei definitely has some very like harem ecchi elements in it that TBATE does not have, which I find very refreshing. Also, the way that Arthur, our main character, develops in the story is also a little bit more fascinating because we spend a lot of time on his growth, how he's making new relationships, but also how he's trying to consolidate his identity of who he was in the previous world where he was a king, and now his new identity is Arthur as he tries to assimilate to his new life. And what's really interesting is that when we're first introduced to Arthur, he's obviously killed in his previous world, in previous life, because that's how he gets reincarnated as Arthur in this new world, but he doesn't know how he died. So that in itself is a big mystery that I don't think has been revealed in the webcomic yet as of this point, and I'm still waiting to find out. I also love some of the big world building that they start to do within the story as Arthur grows older and older. And he does become a prodigy of sorts, very similar to the story of Mushoku Tensei. He just is very familiar with this new world system in comparison to his previous world system and becomes basically a mage prodigy. And what's very awesome is that we will be getting 24 episodes, so hopefully we'll get to see Arthur grow up a bit within this span of the first season so people don't have to wait too long for some of the action to get started. But I am a little bit concerned as to if they'll be able to manage the pacing to put in some action or enough action to keep basically viewers engaged for any potentials of a season 2. This next one does not seem to have a company in the United States that is licensing this as of yet. I'm hoping as of yet, so you may have to sail the 7 seas for this one, but Your Forma also comes out on the same day as The Beginning After the End. This next anime should also be out. This is shaping up to be a mystery sci-fi of sorts as we follow a human detective and her android aide around as they solve all these different crimes and mysteries. And they're currently in, I guess, this world or this universe where everyone has this piece of technology that's implanted in them that's called a Your Forma, hence the title of the anime. And with these Your Formas, they're able to basically track sights, track the hearing and what they hear, and also track the emotions of the user. Now, why this is important is that when a crime is committed, perhaps that person dies, or they need to get into that person's memories, this android can basically connect to their forma, the Your Forma of their forma. That sounds crazy when I say it, but you get what I mean, so that they're able to basically process some of the memories that may be associated with a certain crime that they're investigating. But it seems like there's an underlying other mystery going on with the plot where the android that we're following around is framed for a crime. And their component detective, like their partner, is trying to clear their name. It seems like someone may be creating crimes to frame androids that work for this investigation bureau in order to get back at them. I don't know who this person is yet. This seems to be part of the mystery, but it seems like they have a vendetta against them and trying to get revenge. So for some obvious reasons, I find this really interesting because the whole futuristic aspect, especially now in 2025, when AI technology, androids, self-driving cars are very much hot topic, I think it's really interesting to continue to watch media that play on these themes. And also there's been a lot of anime that's been coming out recently that have this mystery theme to it, which I am enjoying very much. Almost every single anime that I've seen that's associated with the genre of mystery has been a great watch. Highly anticipated returning anime Windbreaker is also coming out this spring. And just like in season 1, where the antagonist was this other gang school, Shishitoren, we now have Keel that's being introduced to us and will be the main antagonist for season 2. And if you actually recall, they were introduced to us in the last episode of season 1 because they were kind of beating up one of the kids from Bofurin, you know, the school that our main character Sakura goes to. And as it goes with these gangs and these school groups, basically in the story of Windbreaker, you kind of have to hit back at the other gang. I don't know if gangs is the right word I should be using here, but there are delinquents. Nonetheless, the trailer seemed to be showing some characters that we were softly introduced to in season 1 from the Bofurin side. We may be getting into their stories a little bit, or a little bit more understanding into their characters. Some new characters that are going to probably be focused on the other side from the antagonist side. And much like season 1, I hope to see more growth from Sakura because this story of Windbreaker, from my perspective as a non-reader at this point, is that this is more of a character-driven story versus a plot-driven story where each interaction that Sakura and Bofurin has with other delinquent schools or delinquent groups is going to help push his character towards his goal, if that makes any sense. But aside from that, we can continue to expect the amazing cinematography that we saw in season 1 and the fantastic fight choreographies that Cloverworks has graced us with. This one I feel like a lot of people have been waiting for because it's been 5 years since the last season. Fire Force is coming out with its final season, which will be broken up into 2 parts. Its first part is airing this spring, with part 2 airing in January of 2026. And it seems like the studio was kind of waiting for the manga to be done in order for them to finish it, because by the time season 2 had ended, they used up most of the source material from the manga and couldn't continue from there on out, or else we would have gotten another Soul Eater, which was created by the same person that created Fire Force. Now, if you're watching this segment right here and thinking like, oh my god, it's been so long since I watched Fire Force, hopefully I can get a recap out of this, you're not getting one because I didn't have time to put one together. And to be super frank, I'm sure there's somebody else out there that's put together a Fire Force recap, so you might as well go search for that, sorry. But from what I do recall, and probably what's gonna get wrapped up in the final season, is that the White Clad is this group of people wearing all white that want to recreate the Great Cataclysm, which is what created the world of Fire Force in the first place, created all of the Infernals, and how people became fire users 2nd and 3rd generation. Additionally, in order for them to make this whole Great Cataclysm happen, they need to find all of the people that are known as the Pillars. And interestingly enough, Shinra, our main character, and his brother are 2 out of those pillars. And now because they need Shinra, they have kidnapped the 8th Division captain, which is the division Shinra is from, in hopes of baiting and luring Shinra in. So it looks like in these final bits, because there's a lot of action dynamic scenes between the people in the 8th Division, some of their allies like Benimaru, are going up against some of the other divisions that have been corrupted and infiltrated by the White Clad. I think we're all looking forward to seeing the end of this after waiting so long between seasons. I think we're all looking forward to the great action that Fire Force has always given us with its creative storyline and creative power system. And I am really keen to see as to how the end of Fire Force makes sense, because I've seen the spoilers out there when the manga first ended, and I was like, you know what? I see what you did there. It's kind of fascinating, but I don't know if this was like forced or if it really makes sense. So I want it to make sense when that story end comes. With all of the action and adventure anime that I've already mentioned, Kowloon Generic Romance, which I don't know if I'm pronouncing correctly, is a refreshing add to this list. Now, I'm just gonna tell you straight up why I'm excited about it before I dive into what it's about. First of all, it's an adult romance. I love the romance genre, and anytime someone has decided to create a manga or adapt and create an anime where the romance is between adults, I'm kind of automatically on board because I'm kind of tired of the high school romance. Second is that even though it's a romance, there's an underlying mystery subgenre baked within this, which I'm very keen to see how this plays out. And second, it's got the modern animation that we're used to seeing, but a 90s feel and style, which is the era I grew up in. So it gives it a little bit of a nostalgic feel from my perspective. Now for the synopsis portion. Our female lead, looking at some photos, can see what I assume is our male lead in her relationship with this person. But as she looks at these photos and tries to recall her relationship, not only does she not remember any part of this relationship, but she's also realizing that she has no memory of anything in her past whatsoever, I think at this point that she's looking at these pictures. So a lot of our plot is driven by the fact that our female lead is looking for who she was, who this person is that she sees in these photos by interacting with other people who it seems like she has relationships with. But as she continues to talk to more and more people and have interactions, she realizes that this person that she doesn't know is a complete stranger to her is nothing like who she is now. So there seems to be a conflict in identity of what's going on as she wants to try and recall her past. So I'm curious as to how our female lead will take all of this new information coming in. Will she try to be like her former self? Will she remain her current self? Or will she try to make a mix of the two, considering she considers them two different people at this point? This next anime on the list may be what Cowboy Bebop fans are most looking forward to this season, as the director that created or directed Cowboy Bebop has created this new story called Lazarus. The plot of this original anime is there's this known doctor that created this monumental drug, painkiller, to help society. As it turns out, years later after that drug has been created and many people have taken it at this point, it is now proven that it's actually kind of poisonous and will kill you if you've taken it or have been taking it. And the only way for you not to die is for you to find this doctor said scientist, because he has the antidote. Unfortunately, no one really knows where he is. So this team called Lazarus comes together in hopes to find him, get the antidote, and save mankind, the world, society. I don't really know how many people are affected by this. But there's a lot of promise considering the director that's attached to it. MAPPA is doing the animation. Some of the action scenes, some of the animation just look very crisp and dynamic when watching the trailers. And the music is very reminiscent of like Cowboy Bebop, so that may have fans feeling a little bit nostalgic. Fun fact about this next anime, TBATE, this is actually a Chinese original anime that is being done in collaboration with a Japanese company, Aniplex. And I love that because we've just been seeing a lot more Chinese original stories or comics being animated more and more like Link Click. And this one I found really cool off the bat because it seems like this story is a bunch of different heroes who want to be called or want the title of Hero X. And they come from what it appears to be different universes. Now, why do I say that? Well, it seems like each of these heroes has a completely different art style attributed to them. Like some of them are 2D, some of them are 3D, some of them are in black and white, obviously some of them are in color, and the color differences are like very different. I mean, I wish I understood art enough to explain this, but when you see the trailers, you'll understand. And in this story, in order for you to become a hero, or what it means to become a hero, you literally have to have people believe in you. Like the more people that believe in you, the more powerful you become. And if you have the belief of most people, like you have the most people believing in you compared to other heroes, then this is kind of what makes you Hero X. Now, why I really love this premise, aside from the different art styles and the different animation, is that one, it kind of takes this whole concept of being a superhero, where when you become a superhero, people kind of believe in you, they look up to you, they kind of look out for you when they're in trouble, and they kind of take it in a very literal sense that it makes your power. It not only motivates you, but it makes you physically stronger and it enhances your abilities. Additionally, in order for you to, I think, get your powers, not only do people need to believe in you, but you need to believe in yourself and the power that I think that you want. That's the impression that the trailers are giving. I could possibly be wrong, but that part definitely intrigued me because that means there's going to be a variety of creative abilities. And going back to the art style, I want to say that maybe if these heroes end up interacting, I mean, I hope they do, what happens to the art style if two different worlds come together? I've seen this manga quite a lot on the Manga Plus app where I read most of my manga. And to be super frank, when I see it on the app and I heard that it was getting an anime adaptation, I was like, I probably won't watch this. But when they released the trailers last year at Jump Festa, I said, okay, I'm locked in, I'm sold, this is a comedy, there's a lot of gags going on in it and a lot of other anime references that look hilarious. I'm watching this. And for those of you who are already a fan of Witch Watch, you may have known that they released the first 3 episodes in theaters already, so you may know already what's going on or what's going to happen in the beginning. I want to say that I think this one is also getting 24 episodes, but I may have to check on that. Now, as for the story itself, the story itself of Witch Watch is about Nico, this witch, and she goes to live with her childhood friend, I think, and who is going to be her familiar, Morihito. And his whole job is to protect Nico and make sure no one finds out that she's a witch. But as they go to school to try and have normal lives, Nico engages in a lot of hijinks. It also seems like there are other familiars of other species that go to the school. I don't know if they know about each other yet, but there is a high likelihood they might find out, who each other person is. And I'm sure while Morihito tries his best to make sure that Nico is kept in check, I don't think he's doing a good job based on what's going on in the trailers. So I think you can expect a lot of comedy, a lot of hijinks, a lot of absolute gags, and the weird, funny dynamic between Nico and Morihito, because it seems like Nico has a crush on Morihito and he's totally unaware. With the end of My Hero Academia, some fans may be sad to see it go, as its final season comes out this fall. However, very strategically and very intelligently, they are now going to be airing the spin-off of My Hero Academia known as My Hero Academia Vigilantes, which is set 5 years prior to the main storyline of My Hero Academia. I mean, for obvious reasons that I love the main story of My Hero Academia, I will be watching this. And I'm sure if you're a My Hero Academia fan, this must be a must-watch for you too. So obviously we have a new MC. This main character definitely has abilities this time, unlike Deku from our original storyline, or our main storyline, I should say. But his abilities are not quite for heroing, I should say. And he also doesn't have his license to be a hero. As we find out within the main storyline of My Hero Academia, you need to go to school, pass a test, get a license in order for you to practice heroing. Otherwise, you'll be deemed as either a vigilante or a villain, depending on your action. But our main character, who has always wanted to be a hero, decides to take matters into his own hands and starts heroing, for lack of better words. But again, because he has no license, he ends up being a vigilante. And what I think is the main aspect of the story, he ends up grouping together with other people who don't have licenses as well to be heroes, and these people become what we know as vigilantes. Now this spin-off I think is really cool because we are kind of introduced to the idea of vigilantes here and there within My Hero Academia with Stain. Stain, however, is kind of this chaotic element that attacks heroes, but only heroes that are kind of corrupt, so you can't really pinpoint him as to whether he's a villain or just a regular vigilante, if that makes sense. But from what I understand, Stain is actually in the story of Vigilantes, 5 years prior to the main story, so I suspect that he might have a softer side within My Hero Academia Vigilantes versus how we see him in the main storyline of My Hero Academia. So I'm curious as to if they'll help us connect the dots between these two stories, or if what goes on in the story of Vigilantes sets up a lot of precedent for the conflict that happens in My Hero Academia. This one has been personally on my read list for a very long time, so I'm very excited that it's getting an anime finally. For those of you that have ever watched any Mobile Suit Gundam story, you know that none of these ever actually are happy. They're always revolves around war and children fighting war. So with the release of Mobile Suit Gundam GQuuuuuuX, you can expect that the very cute looking character designs were put there to deceive us. Don't expect something happy and jolly. I don't think that's the way Gundam's ever supposed to go. But we are introduced to our main character, for those of you who have not seen the movie, because I haven't, and from what I understand, that movie was like the first episode of the series that will be airing on Prime. But getting back to my main points, our main character seems to have been born in space on this space colony and only knows space. She comes to meet this war refugee, which kind of changes her life, and they find this Gundam suit. So what evidently I think ends up happening based on the trailer, and don't quote me on this because I haven't seen any other material, and because this is original, I'm making some assumptions here. But what I think happens is that in meeting this war refugee and in wanting to help her out, she also finds this Gundam, and there are these underground illegal Gundam fights that go on. So she decides to participate in these fights. Unfortunately, these fights are kind of life or death, because in order for you to win, you have to take off the head of the Gundam, where sometimes is where the pilot is. So I'm very curious to see as to how this story plays out. Will our main character help this war refugee get back to where she's originally from? Will she find some other new purpose? Because the way that she talks about her life, it sounds very mundane and monotone, because she's only really lived in space and kind of wants to experience more. And with fighting in these Gundam battles underground, she seems to be meeting all these new people and these connections. But will all of these connections be good or bad? So I'll be finding out by watching this new Gundam series on Prime this season. And if you have the same questions, you should probably watch too. I don't think I've ever said this, but it's really cool when we have original anime, because there's no source material for us to look up, there's no manga for us to go read, so we're always on the edge of our seats to see what's going to be happening in the next episode. Another original anime, which apparently was teased over 2 years ago by Netflix, MoonRise, is coming out this spring. And because, again, no source material, we can only really go off what the trailers show us. And like the title kind of alludes to and indicates, MoonRise is basically about the people who live on the moon rising up against the Earth that colonized them. They kind of were like, we've had enough, we want to be independent, we need to separate from Earth. How do we do that? Well, let's go to war with them and let's, attack Earth. Well, unfortunately, our main character, Jack, is one of the victims in these attacks, or rather his family is. His family ends up getting unalived by some of these terrorist events that the moon commits, and ends up joining this reconnaissance mission with other people to go to the moon, infiltrate the rebel army of the moon, and take out the leader. But I don't know, as it turns out from some of the trailers, Jack, because very emotional from the loss of his family, may not be ready for a mission like this. Who knows if he starts to derail the mission in hopes of getting revenge. But what's really awesome is that this is being animated by Wit Studio, so very clean animation. The character designs were done by the mangaka for Full Metal Alchemist, so some people were really excited to see her name attached to the series. And from what I've heard, they may actually be releasing all of the episodes at once on Netflix, but that's a rumor that I have yet to fully confirm. But we'll see on April 10th when MoonRise comes out. Last anime on this list before our honorable mentions, Go Go Loser Ranger is back with season 2. Now, here's the thing. If you watched season 1 and said, I don't understand what's going on, guess what? You're not alone. Even as someone who reads the manga, I was like, what the f is going on? Did they skip so many different things? Yes, they did. So here's a pro tip from someone who's reading the manga. If you want to watch the anime, you kind of have to read the manga. And I will say that us as manga readers also watch the anime to understand the manga. So you kind of can't do one without the other. Isn't that nuts? But here's what we're going to be getting out of season 2. Now that Foot Soldier D has passed the test in season 1, and he's able to join one of the battalions. He is recruited into the Green Battalion. The Green Battalion is known for hunting down executives. Like, that's their main job. Every battalion has a very specific job, and this is Green's job. So that means we get to see a lot of best girl Hisui, who we get introduced to in season 1. Does that also mean that Foot Soldier D has a chance to take out the Green Dragon Keeper in season 2 like he took out Blue in season 1? But what we can see from the trailers is that as Foot Soldier D and some other person whose name I can't remember, but they're very important to the storyline, join the Green Battalion, they start investigating this school where they're hearing rumblings that there's potentially an executive there. And while there is, this executive is known as Magatia. They become trapped in the school, which I'm assuming is part of the ability of this new executive that they've encountered. And they have to kind of relive a lot of the events that's going on in this school over and over and over again until they find Magatia. All right, now here are some honorable mentions. 1, One Piece is coming back. Yay! One Piece is coming back, and they'll be picking right back up in the Egghead arc. Whoa. It feels like it's been so long since I've watched the One Piece anime, and as the manga gets further and further along, it's kind of crazy that we're still in the very beginning of Egghead. But you know, they needed to take that break so that they wouldn't catch up to the source material. 2 is that there's a new animation coming out for Devil May Cry, you know, for the video game, if you're familiar with it. I don't know if it's really an anime. That's kind of why it's an honorable mention, because I will be watching that. That comes out on April 3rd. So it's probably already airing by the time you've watched this. Yeah, so I don't know whether I should call that an anime because I don't know if it's been animated in Japan. It's not being marketed as an anime. I've only really seen actors in association with English dubbing. So it's kind of really hard to say. But nonetheless, I thought I'd mention it for those of you who may think it is an anime, and it's worth mentioning regardless. And this last honorable mention, which I will not be watching, but I will be living vicariously through others, is called Please Put Them on Takemine-san. Now here's why I had to mention it. The premise of it is so wacky that I was like, if I don't mention it, I feel like I'm just not giving you the opportunity to check it out. This anime is basically around this girl who can time travel. But here's the thing, she can time travel or go back in time only when she takes her underwear off. And this guy accidentally, I guess, ends up finding out. He ends up catching her in the act and ends up time traveling back with her. I think it's supposed to be a romance comedy of sorts, but obviously it falls within the ecchi category, okay? I don't know how much is censored because it looks like there's nipples in it, kinda. I don't know how much they show in regards when she's taking her underwear off, but you know, it's going to be airing on Crunchyroll. I think people are going to be checking it out because there's something to it that maybe I don't fully understand. But yeah, you know, I just thought I'd put that on your radar if that's your cup of tea. Regardless though, that is everything that I will be watching this spring season. Hopefully something on this list captured your attention, something new. If there's something on this list that you're already actively watching or you've had on your list, please let me know in the comments below what you're actually going to be watching this spring, you know, even if it's not on my list. And make sure you like and share with somebody else so that I can know, or YouTube can let me know, whether you love or like videos like this so I can continue to keep making them. However, that's gonna do it for me. Thank you so much for watching and thank you so much for joining, especially because this video has been delayed due to technical difficulties and personal life difficulties. I am your host. This has been another episode of Animel. I am your host, Mel, and I will catch you on the next one. Bye.